Hello and welcome to another JCI Santa Clarita podcast. My name is Koren Young, broadcasting to you from RK Studios. We're going to check in with Joey Levy with the new segment in just a little bit, but first I am joined by my co-host, Daniela Echaiz. How are you, Daniela?
Doing good, Koren. How are you?
Pretty good. So we actually just finished up a couple days ago our 40 under 40. This was our 10th anniversary event, and I think it went pretty well. How are you feeling a few days after the fact?
A few days after recovering? Yeah, it was actually a really great event. I think even with the little bit of hiccups, everything went better than what we thought it would. A lot of people loved all the music segments, the intermissions, the overall food in the patios, so it was really good.
Yeah, we got some pretty good feedback. Now, for the people that don't know, the event has changed venues over the years. We've had it at TPC. The last couple of years have been at the Valencia Hyatt with a plated dinner. This year we decided to change it up just a little bit and have it in a theater setting, which I don't know if we had done it before. I had only been around for a couple of years. But
from what I've heard, no, it hasn't been done before.
It was an interesting change. The event was about 3 hours long. We started at 7, ended up at 10 p.m. I noticed that while we were giving the bios felt a little bit long, so I think next year we would shorten that just a little bit. But at the end of the day, the idea is to really recognize the accomplishments of those 40 individuals, and the best way to do that is to really give them each their moment to shine.
Yeah, and I think a lot of the honorees that I talked to after the event, they definitely felt honored. A lot of them commented how they've never felt honored or special before, and the event that we put on was so memorable to them and to their families that they really were touched by it.
Cool. Yeah, definitely. I think that was a big deal for them. There were so many of them that have never interacted with us or with each other. They've done so much for the community for whatever it is, whether it's the American Cancer Society or Sir Optimus International. But they're kind of like, they weren't so much connected to the rest of the community that does all the different things. And it's cool to bring them all together into one room.
Well, yeah, I think like even in your speech, you brought up the fact that so many of them are kind of more behind the scenes, so nobody really knows about them, but everybody knows somebody's having to do the work. So yeah, now they know.
Yeah, the cool thing, and I mentioned this in my little blurb too, is that when I was talking to Ed Bernstein about a month ago from 25 Score, he had mentioned something about, you're one of the SCV 300, and that's a term that I had never heard before. And when I asked him what that meant, he said that, well, any city has about 300 people that work behind the scenes that are the ones that are doing all the work, right? They're going to all the board meetings, they're serving on all the committees, they're at all the nonprofit fundraisers, and I guess there's an official Facebook group called The 300. I'm not in it.
Yeah.
Are you?
No. I thought you were joking when you brought up the SCV 300, but no, I think Alex showed me the group page, and no, we're not on it.
No, well, it's actually a group, so he's going to have to kick some people out to welcome some new people.
Yeah.
And so with 40 new people every year from the 40 under 40 class, we're going to have to make some room.
Exactly.
So we want to bring on some of our guests today. So we're going to be joined by two people. One of them is Christian Dadulak, who's a new member of JCI Santa Clarita. By day, he's a financial advisor at Primerica Financial Services, an alumnus from Arizona State University, and he's lived here pretty much his whole life. So he's passionate about helping veterans and fighting cancer. And then we've also got Joe Bealer, who also works in finance. He's a financial analyst at Logix Federal Credit Union, and he also joined just earlier this year in May of 2019, and he's a community manager for JCI Santa Clarita. So welcome, guys.
Thank you for having us.
Thank you. We appreciate it. It's nice to be here.
Yeah, it's cool. So we'll start with Christian. You do work in finance, but you're passionate about helping veterans. Are you a veteran yourself, or what's your connection to that community?
No, I'm not a veteran myself, but I have a special appreciation for veterans. I guess high school, I should say. I was applying for the military academies. I went to the Naval Academy summer seminar before my senior year, and I got nominated by Buck McKeon out here when he was a congressman for West Point and the Merchant Marine Academy. I didn't get in, but I was interested in going down that route, and so that led me to being in Marine Option Naval ROTC for 2 years in college. The whole path and trajectory of my life changed halfway through college, so I didn't end up serving, but from spending time in there, I really developed a special appreciation for the military. And then, I've had family in the military, friends. My dad's best friend growing up was killed in action in Vietnam. So all these stories that I've learned over my life, I've really just developed a real appreciation for veterans. Yeah.
Well, it's a good place to have your heart, and we could definitely use somebody with that passion on our team. And Joe Bealer, you are our community manager. Welcome to the podcast and to JCI in general. What's your background and what's your passion?
Sure. So my background, I've been involved with nonprofit work really since out of high school. I'm actually on the board of directors for a nonprofit called Strong Villages. I've been on that board for a couple of years now, and it's really about trying to find a way to give back to the community. Strong Villages gives back to Indigenous people worldwide, but I just recently moved up to Santa Clarita a couple months ago. So as I moved up here, I was trying to find a way to give back to the Santa Clarita community. And I reached out to our executive vice president, Neil Fitzgerald, and he invited me along to a general membership meeting. I found out a lot about the JCs, and as soon as I showed up to that meeting, I recognized that JCI is just heavily involved within the Santa Clarita community. I knew this is exactly the organization I needed to be a part of in order to make that kind of impact I truly wanted to make to those that are here in Santa Clarita. For myself, I'm truly just genuinely passionate about trying to empower those that are marginalized, just trying to give a voice to those that just have no opportunity or really no capability of having that voice. So for myself, just trying to find any way possible to try and alleviate any suffering that's going on in their life, or really just trying to empower them and find a way for them to gain that voice, garner that voice, and lift them up and support them in whatever way I can. So I think that just with me joining the JCs, I think that there's a tremendous amount of opportunities to really help those out right here in this community that we walk past every single day, that we drive past every single day on the freeway. So I think that there's a tremendous opportunity to kind of build that out right here in Santa Clarita.
Yeah, there definitely is. I think that these days there are a lot of marginalized communities, and I think everybody feels kind of offended or kept down in some way, right? Even people that are in the overwhelming majority. So how do you choose who could use the assistance or where you want to focus your efforts?
Well, I think that trying to solve all the world's problems in one day is a really difficult task. So I think this just trying to help out with the nitty-gritty, just trying to get down to the base level and just trying to help out an individual on a foundational level. I know that most recently the JCs just sponsored an event where we worked with Bridge to Home in order to serve food to the homeless. So that was done by way of Christian Dadulak with Neil Fitzgerald, with a bunch of others, Tracy Taplin. So they were able to really facilitate this kind of an event that empowers and that tries to alleviate the suffering for those that genuinely just need that basic necessity of food. So I think that trying to find opportunities like that, trying to find opportunities where we can alleviate that basic necessity is a way that we can begin the foundation of trying to empower those. So I think it's just something that we can't just garner overnight, but it's something that we have to build a foundation.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. There's so many people out here that can that are hurting in different ways, and we try to help them out. One of our big events, our flagship event, is Santa's Helpers, and so we're just kind of getting started with setting that up for the next month. And I think we can learn a lot from the way that we've done it in the past. Daniela was actually our chair for Santa's Helpers last year and on the committee for this year. Can you tell us a little bit about that program and how we're kind of helping out people that could use the help for the holiday season?
Yeah, so we've usually partnered with Family Promise, the Children and Family Center, Single Mothers Outreach. Not sure if this year's committee is going to expand that, because last year we actually were able to help out some more groups after our event, like the Children's Hospital, the Sheriff's Association. And
We're working with Fostering Youth Independence as well.
Oh, perfect.
Cool. Yeah, we had a lot of toys left over. Like we needed, I think we had almost 300 children. Each got about 4 toys. So we needed like 1,200 toys, and we ended up getting more.
Well over the amount that we even expected. We actually filled up an entire hotel room at the Holiday Inn Express, and they were able to let us hold on to it for at least a week, because we really had to reach out to the different groups that were still messaging us, asking if we had any toys for any age groups, and thankfully we had. It was just trying to be fair in distributing them. But
yeah, that's always tricky.
Yeah, but the one thing that we learned last year, and it's something I've always been cognizant about, but nobody really thinks about it, it's all those kids that are growing up and now they're becoming teenagers, and no one gives them anything for the holidays. I used to actually be a part of the Single Mothers Outreach Program at Princess Cruises every year, and it was always interesting to hear employees criticize some of the wish lists that we would get from the families, because the older kids, of course, they would ask for the latest and greatest toys.
Like an Xbox or something,
exactly,
right? Yeah.
Or a game. And sometimes, even though I tried not to give my opinion too much since I was HR, but a lot of them I had to remind them, I'm like, well, your kids ask for these things all the time and you don't blink an eye, so why are you criticizing when it's the company that's putting the money for it? You just have to do the shopping.
Right.
And some of them really had to kind of do a little self-reflection on that part. But same thing with these organizations. The employees and people that have volunteered at our events, sometimes they go above and beyond, and they end up getting like bikes for the entire family. When I was at Princess, it was actually almost a whole amount of groceries that you would never imagined for an entire family for at least a good month. Like, even I remember one wish list was actually a girl that I could relate to, at least at that age. All she wanted was books, art. So I went to Barnes & Noble's, got like the latest and greatest, like a full series for her to read, and art materials. And surprisingly, I didn't expect the family to ever write back, but because we don't get to share like who we are and who gifted. But the mom was really appreciative, because the daughter was just like over the moon, getting exactly what she wanted, which has never happened before for them.
Yeah, that's pretty rare. I think a lot of these gift programs, the kids are happy to get something, right? Just to have some kind of gift. But what we do is we receive thousands of presents, and we have an evening where we do the gift sorting event. And so we actually bring in kids to help us. And so we'll say, here is a 7-year-old girl, and she likes art, she likes reading, she likes science. And you walk around and you look at all the donated gifts that are sorted into different categories, right? They're sorted. We've got dolls over here. We've got board games over there. We've got books and different things. So whoever is doing the quote unquote shopping for that child will get to kind of select different items, and then we have somebody else approve it and see, is this age appropriate? Is this kind of what the kid wants.
Yeah, but it was really touching to see like the younger kids, like some that weren't even 10 years old. They'd get the lists and they'd be like, "No, mommy, you can't give him that. That's not good enough." It's like they would go around and like look through the entire room and pick out something personal.
Yeah, that was something that Taylor Kellstrom, our JCI president, was telling us at our most recent Santa's Helpers Committee. He was telling us a story about how at the most recent Santa's Helpers last year, that he was noticing that there was this one child about 5 years old, and he was sitting there and he was trying to pick out presents. And the reality is that there's a lot of children at that age that are genuinely just happy with receiving their own gifts and having their own gifts. But Taylor was letting us all know that that child was so happy to actually pick out the gifts, to try to find the gifts, and like you were saying, Daniela, personalize it for each and every single child. I think that experience is just totally priceless for what the child and what we all receive out of it. I think that really impacted Taylor, and his story really impacted our committee.
Right. So the volunteers, you're saying the child that was the volunteer
Yes.
got a lot out of the experience.
Correct.
Yeah. Neat.
Yeah. It was definitely fascinating to really hear it, and hear it from Taylor's perspective. Taylor's a new father, so he was really just painting the picture that this is something that he would hope for his own child, and this is something that really impacts our community. It really impacts our youth. It really tries to breed a future of children that are going to be givers rather than takers. So I think that's Santa's Helpers, and it in and of itself is a really impactful experience. So
Yeah, it definitely is. And Taylor's a great person to kind of talk about that, because he's involved in so many organizations. I mean, he's the immediate past president of Circle of Hope and one of the co-founders of Hope's Haven. And one of the cool things about Circle of Hope is, there's a lot of organizations that raise money for cancer research, but it doesn't necessarily help the people that are affected by it, right? So if you need a ride to and from the hospital, if you need hotel stays while you're in and out of appointments, a lot of those expenses are on you, and all the cancer research money in the world doesn't help you for that. So Circle of Hope helps people locally that are affected and impacted by that kind of situation.
Yeah, and I completely agree with that, Koren. Just to really kind of piggyback off of that, I think that trying to be able to support those types of organizations, most recently, JCI, we held a community social that was really partnering with Circle of Hope, trying to partner with their 31 Days of Hope, which is essentially acknowledging Breast Cancer Awareness Month for the month of October. So one of their 31 Days of Hope, or 31 Days of Giving, essentially, is a community pint night held at Wolf Creek Brewery, which JCI, we had representatives show up, be involved, grab a drink, really try to create some sort of recognition and donation process for Circle of Hope, and just try to be a part of and try to support that group in and of itself. So I think it's a great way to give back.
Yeah, now one of the other things that we've done recently, and I don't remember doing this last year, but it was the Random Acts of Kindness. And this was a whole month-long campaign.
Yeah, no, this was the first year that we were able to do it. I think last year we talked about doing it, and we never could figure out what month would be appropriate.
Yeah, well, talk is cheap. And this year we actually got some stuff done.
Yeah.
Christian, you were involved with the Random Acts of Kindness. How big of a project was that, and what all went into it?
So, again, this was the first year that we did it. This was Neil Fitzgerald's, or at least from what I know, a project that he wanted to see carried out. And so Joe and I, being relatively new members to the JCs, he said, what a wonderful opportunity to empower you guys than to, help you guys both be community managers, but also co-chair this project. And so in a nutshell, what the project was about was performing random acts of kindness and empowering members, local businesses in the community to help local nonprofits with much needed supplies that they needed, and just overall to encourage the community just to randomly be kind, which I think, on every level of our society, we all, should definitely do more. And so what we did was we partnered with a lot of local businesses. We established, very similar to part of the Santa's Helpers Drive, we established local donation boxes at some of the businesses that decided to partner with us. And people could drop off donations. That specific business was paired up with a local nonprofit. And whatever the supplies that they asked for, people could donate to that location. And, as far as how big the project was, it was, it's its first year, so it's kind of like almost a test drive. But I feel like it went really well. I mean, I go to Gold's Gym. That's where I work out, believe it or not. And I remember walking by and I saw the 2 donation boxes there that you dropped off.
I dropped them off, yeah.
Yeah. And those are almost full. At least there's a couple of big donations. It was really nice to see that people were involved. I don't know where the donations came from, but just to see with that one location that people were giving, and it encourages the rest of the community to not only, donate to this, but it raises awareness about the JCs and what we do as an organization, and about the nonprofits themselves that each of these locations is partnered with as well. So, it's the first year. I think going forward, there have been lessons learned on how we can improve and do better. But as far as the first year goes, I think it was a great way to get local businesses involved, the local community involved, and to really help out some local nonprofits.
And just to spotlight real quick, one nonprofit that really took this challenge to be kind and to encourage their organization to be kind and take on this Random Act of Kindness month, that would be Fostering Youth Independence. They actually challenged their children, which they serve, and the result of what they've been able to accomplish. We actually sent out a bingo card to all of our members and to our community, and the bingo card is essentially just little random acts of kindness, whether that be going in, purchasing coffee for the person behind you, paying it forward, or holding the door open for somebody, or sending a kind note to somebody telling them how much you appreciate them. FYI, Fostering Youth Independence really took that challenge head on, and those children and that organization has really taken that challenge and they've excelled with it, and they took it beyond what Christian or I could even imagine. So I really just want to recognize them for that level of involvement, and for them truly showing that act of kindness.
That is so cool. I didn't realize that they were so involved with our Random Acts of Kindness. I know that my first exposure to Fostering Youth Independence was just a couple months ago. I think we had them at one of our general membership meetings, or what we call the chat and chills. Do you remember that, Daniela?
Yeah, we invited them to participate, and at the time we hadn't even really talked about Santa's Helpers or Random Acts of Kindness, but they really wanted to get involved with JCI and see what we could work together with. So I'm not surprised that a lot of their kids would go ahead and try to be kind. Most of them come from backgrounds where they haven't had it easy, and just a little ounce of kindness goes a long way.
Yeah. Well, no, what was the idea with those bingo cards? So each card is like, it's got BINGO across the top and maybe numbers across the bottom. Like 25 items that do you need to complete all of them, or get a row or a column? What?
Looking at it, I think that it wasn't exactly like a bona fide bingo card where you complete a row or something like that, because it didn't function exactly like a bingo card. But the idea was, look, complete as many of these acts on this bingo card as you can, because the cool thing about doing something that's randomly kind is that it often has a ripple effect. And it just reminds me of a story that I actually heard earlier today from my pastor. He said that his wife was in line at a drive-through Starbucks or something like that, and she said, I'm going to get the car behind me. And because she's a regular, she came back one day and some of the workers said, look, just from doing that, you started a ripple effect, and every car behind you for about a 10-car chain bought their coffee for the person behind them. And so the idea behind the bingo card was just to get people involved in performing random acts of kindness, both big and small, so that it could create that ripple effect. And Charlene and I, who's a member here at JCI Santa Clarita, we were filming a video to highlight the random acts of kindness that we're doing. And we went up to a Starbucks counter and said, look, we both gave $5 each and said, look, let this be applied to someone's coffee.
Oh, how cool.
And we actually got to meet that person, and he came out and thanked us. Oh my gosh, this is so nice of you guys.
Wow.
I can't believe you're doing it. It was a great opportunity to tell him a little bit about JCI, and it was nice, and you just feel good, and maybe that will empower him and make it exciting in his heart to go out and do something similar. And so that was the idea behind the bingo card. It wasn't exactly like you cross off this row or this order,
and then
but
you yell out
like,
bingo real
yeah,
loud.
I was nice to 4 people. What do I get?
Exactly.
right, exactly. And like you said, it's what it does to you that's so important, and how it changes you in your heart, and to learn how to become others focused, because that's what JCI Santa Clarita is all about, and to empower the rest of the community to see life and serving the same way, I think is really great, and that was the overall purpose.
Yeah.
But not only that, you guys also took it on social media, and you challenged some people, which I saw, but you also wanted to market stories, positive stories that were actually out during the month of October. We had some interesting news.
that was definitely one of the items on that bingo card, was to post a kindness meme. And so JCI took it upon ourselves to post our own memes. We challenged our national vice president, and we challenged all of our members, and we challenged plenty of individuals throughout, not just JCI members, but members and individuals throughout the entire Santa Clarita Valley. So that was definitely one of them.
Yes, and then we also posted videos and different news segments of different individuals, children, adults. We even celebrated someone's 100th birthday, if I remember correctly.
Oh, that's right.
Yeah.
That veteran, that World War II veteran.
Yes.
Yeah,
And how'd that turn out?
He wanted 100 birthday cards for his 100th birthday.
And
he
he ended
probably
up
got
with like
more.
100,000.
100,000.
Pretty
yeah.
sure they came back and reported it was about 100,000 birthday cards that he got.
I did see
And
that
we
headline.
were-
He's going to be reading those for the rest of his life.
Yeah, he will.
Yes.
Hopefully he'll find ours. We definitely sent one to him at one of our general membership meetings. We made it a point to write out a birthday card to this veteran. So
Yeah, we all signed it.
yeah, it was great to be a part of that. It's great to be able to facilitate that, and to be one of the 100,000. It's really special.
Yeah, it feels cool to be a part of like a bigger thing like that. Like there's a lot of small things, like you mentioned, just holding the door open for somebody else or paying for the person behind you. But then there's also like these big projects that it's really cool to be a part of. One of the items I think on the bingo card was to thank a first responder, and that was right around the time when we had so many fires going on right here in Southern California that I think that we had people from like 85 different cities like coming here, like firefighters from all over the place helping us
Well, not only
out.
that,
Yeah.
I think we also had some out of state. I think Oregon even came down to help us too.
I believe it, yeah. So yeah, it's nice to show them that we appreciate what they're doing for us. Yes, it's their job, but they're still putting their lives on the line for
Absolutely. Yeah, and I know Neil actually was all over social media trying to organize an effort to help out with the evacuees and helping out the responders as well. And he actually put together, we partnered with
Feed SCV.
Feed SCV, that's right.
Oh, that's right.
And,
Yep.
Yeah, and so we all kind of got up early on a Saturday, a few of us, and helped out with food and delivering it to the evacuation centers. And it was a really nice thing to be able to do, and it perfectly fell in line with the philosophy of being randomly kind, especially in the face of like fiery doom it seemed to be everywhere. So it was cool. As the call is there, we show up when we're needed.
Right. Yeah. So there's a lot of people I mean, we've got a few people out here that have actually like lost their homes, and they're going to
Yeah.
need some help with recovering. But there's other people. There were thousands of people, I think, that were displaced from their homes, like just evacuated for a couple of days, and so their need is only temporary, but it's still significant.
Right. I think it was the largest evacuation in Santa Clarita history. I mean, I could be wrong, but
No,
that's what I
actually,
heard.
it was. I mean, Koren and I have lived in Santa Clarita for most of our lives, and we've been close to getting evacuated, but this is the first time where it's actually took a whole segment of Santa Clarita then had them at COC for
I left
at
home
least 2 days.
for a few hours. I came back that night anyway. but-
Yeah, he left there for a few hours. I was actually on the borderline of getting evacuated, but it didn't settle any nerves for that
Yeah,
night.
it's not an easy situation dealing with those California fires.
No, especially with the high winds from the Santa Ana, so it made it that much worse. But I know there was probably some criticism for the level of evacuation, but I think the fact this valley is so risky in getting caught in those kind of fires, the amount of work from the first responders, like even all the nonprofit groups all together feed
Yeah, that amount
SCVNS.
of dedication in order to serve everyone in the community, in order to, I mean, just sitting there watching, like you sit there on the news and you're looking at ABC7 or KCAL9 or whatever, and you're watching the news and you're just recognizing all the different resources that are coming throughout, like you said, not even just within state, but some out of state with those firefighters. It's tremendous to see what they're able to do. And I know that JCI, Santa Clarita, we're definitely looking at trying to find a way to go back and try to show our thanks to the first responders, to show our thanks to the firefighters. So just really stay tuned for that to see what we're going to be able to facilitate and what we're going to be able to have as an event for those that really stepped in right there.
Yeah, what's crazy is that, yes, a lot of us were inconvenienced. The structures, the loss of life and the loss of structures was relatively minimal for a fire that big, but there were a lot of people that were displaced, and then there were a lot of people that had their power shut off for days, and of course they're complaining because it stinks not having your power or not having your the internet access or whatever. But on the flip side of that, we saw what happened here in California just a year ago when we had high winds, it was hot, it was dry, and power lines got all jacked up and started a fire that ended up destroying many homes, killing a lot of people, and ultimately the electric company was responsible for that. And I think they were just trying to be proactive, and of course there's going to be people that are unhappy about that, but they're kind of damned if you do, damned if you don't. That kind of stinks.
Well, I think, like all things, you look back and you see how you can do it better. A lot of people were more concerned about, their medicines that need to be maintained. Some can't afford to get the food replaced from all the power outages.
Oh, that's right. Yeah, the spoilage.
So it's different things, but you're right. For what could have happened, the amount of inconvenience, it's always easy to criticize first responders and the power company on what they do.
Yeah, it's better safe than sorry. Some spoiled food is obviously worth a lot less than, someone passing away or anything like that. So I think they'd made the right call.
Yeah, but I think the other thing is showcasing all the nonprofits that could help them recover is also something that, at least in our valley, we have a lot of nonprofits that focus on that. So I think the amount of recovery probably will be faster.
Yeah, one thing I love about this area is that everybody does spring into action. We do have a great community that is focused on community, and I don't know if it's everybody, but there's definitely a lot of people that are there to help you and support their neighbors in the time of need. So it's good to see that. So what we're going to do now is we're going to check in with a new segment. So this is Joey Levy with Levy's Lessons, and then we'll come back and talk to Christian and Joe about why they JC. Stay tuned.
Hi there, welcome to Levy's Lessons, where we talk about failures, challenges, and how we overcome it. Today I'm with my good friend, Chris Kahan, who's past chapter president of JCI Santa Clarita and works for the CART and Data Mine, a global trade content company. So, Chris, is there anything else I missed?
No, I'm originally from Orlando, Florida. I was born there, and I moved to Los Angeles in 2004. Moved to Northridge, which I thought was a great place. I found out quickly it really wasn't for me. Did some work training in Valencia, and that's how I ended up in Santa Clarita.
Excellent. So let's dive right into it. So you
Sure.
have a couple examples of challenges and some failures that you had to deal with in your life. Could you expand on that?
Right. So I'll start off by giving you, again, growing up in Orlando, and that's, again, playing sports, golf, and tennis mainly. That's what you do. Grew up in a very athletic household. So, when in my childhood and what translated into my early 20s, failure was I would just do something, then get frustrated, then just don't do it again. Basically, I would try, but I would just quickly divert to what was comfortable, and I would get that quick win. Well, when I had moved to Santa Clarita Valley, I was in a relationship, and I became single just before joining the JCs, and I was looking for an organization to be a part of, and looking to develop myself, because I always blame myself for a lot of what happened in that relationship. And a friend of mine introduced me to the JCs. Actually, your dad actually introduced me to the JCs and told me to check out this organization. I talked to him. I talked to Nicole Rockstead as well, and just I went to my first meeting, and really was able to, through that, work on projects, be an active member, and take on responsibility, and in turn, got my confidence back. And my investment in people as well, because newly single and blame myself for a lot of things. The confidence was not there, and I thought I'd be single for the rest of my life.
So let's just go through that really quickly.
Sure.
So
Yeah.
So you moved to LA. You were in a serious-ish relationship.
Yes.
And then all of a sudden you weren't.
Well, right. Things happened, and it was just, again, I thought it was all my fault. And so,
Right.
when you're young, you would think about that. And Santa Clarita is not exactly the best place to meet people in the 20s and 30s or something. It's just
Right.
not. It's not like a Santa Monica. It's not LA. So it was difficult for me to meet people,
Right.
around my age and like-minded.
Right.
So yes, and that was definitely. So it was, again, I wanted to be a part of the community, wanted to work on myself after that.
Right. That's fantastic. So you were able to
Yeah.
Pivot from something that was, a stressful challenge and find success.
Absolutely. And as a result, I actually met my wife through the JCs.
Excellent. And you were saying that you have another example that you wanted to share?
Right. So from more of a professional standpoint, being president of the JC chapter, working with people, dealing with projects, having to plan, having to deal with personalities on a daily basis, right, and partners, has led me into professional growth, but also professional failure, and I call it failure forward, because, a couple of years ago, I had a big job change, and, was actually not employed for about a year. And that being part of the JCs really helped me to pivot and to reach out to my network and to get me back on my feet, really is what it was.
So go through that.
Yeah, sure.
So you had to find a new job.
Yeah.
And using that experience, you were able to go through your contacts and make it happen.
Absolutely. I mean, go to my contacts, kind of reassess. I even did a PMG, to kind of assess, okay, let's kind of write a game plan here and just go back to my roots of JCs and projects and my network. And it really made a world of difference.
Wonderful. Well, thank you very much for joining me. Is there any tidbits or hints that you'd like to leave us with?
Yeah, I used to think failure was a destination, but it's part of the journey. So I say let's fail forward, and that's what we should do.
Excellent. Thank you, Chris.
No problem. Thanks, Joe.
Thank you, Joey, for that first-time segment of Levy's Lessons. And we're back here in the studio with Daniela, Christian, and Joe. What did you guys think of the lessons that we learned from Joey and Chris?
I think it was great. I love the message just to put it mildly and bluntly, I think it's awesome to encourage people to fail. A lot of people, like was mentioned, they think that failure is a destination when in fact it is just part of the journey. You do need to fail forward, and failure isn't fatal. It's not the end of the world. You can name any successful entrepreneur, businessman, nonprofit leader, everybody. Abe Lincoln, if you took out the presidency and him just, excelling at that, you look at the rest of his life and the track record, he wasn't exactly some example of massive success, but it was all building up to this massive culmination of, I'm Abe Lincoln now, like I'm the president of the United States. And so it's just part of the journey, and I really thought it was awesome.
Yeah, I think that what you said was a great point. It reminds me of Thomas Edison and how he once said that, up until the end there, he didn't necessarily invent the light bulb. He invented 10,000 ways to not create the light bulb.
Exactly.
So yeah, you just got to keep going. I wanted to talk to you guys about why you do what you do. What made you want to join the JCs? Because you are both relatively new members. Joe, I want to start with you. What brought you to the organization? How did you find out about it?
What brought me to the organization is that I just moved into the Valley a couple months ago, back in May. And whenever I moved into the Valley, I was trying to look for a new group of people to associate myself with. I got connected with our executive vice president, Neil Fitzgerald, and he informed me about this group that's about facilitating help throughout the entire Santa Clarita Valley. I went to a general membership meeting, Chat and Chill, over at Margarita's, first Thursday of the month of every month. Just a little shout out. And whenever I went, I met a bunch of incredible people, including Daniela, and to really be able to kind of see the impact and kind of understand how JCI Santa Clarita really has their hands in so much throughout Santa Clarita. It was really just great to kind of see that and to kind of hone back in on what Chris was talking about, which was comfortability. That was kind of a theme or a message that he was talking about. I think that with joining JCI Santa Clarita back in May and now being involved in Random Acts of Kindness and getting exposed to Santa's helpers, it's really about that comfortability. It's about failing. It's about failing forward. It's about being uncomfortable. And for JCI Santa Clarita, I work in finance, and that's what I live, breathe, and do, and I get paid for. But the reality is that if I want to be great at finance and I want to do finance for the rest of my life, then I'll dedicate myself to it, and I'll do the CFA, and I'll, train my butt off in order to make sure that happens. But the reality is that I'd like to be a well-rounded individual who understands the aspects of marketing, who understands and is able to sit here and be able to be a part of RK Studios and really be able to see the amount of dedication that goes into even this podcast. I think that the exposure that I've gained from JCI Santa Clarita, being able to be exposed to individuals that are a part of any and every industry, I think that's completely priceless, and I think that it's just truly tremendous.
I hadn't considered that, but you're right. We do have people from all kinds of different industries, and the cool thing about it, like you said, is yes, you specialize in finance, but your contributions to JCI Santa Clarita are not necessarily finance related.
No, I'm not the treasurer. I am not interested in being the treasurer. I'm actually interested in trying to develop my weaknesses. I'm interested in failing. I'm sorry, JCI Santa Clarita. I kind of want to fail.
Yeah, and I mean, the cool thing about that is that we won't let you. The whole point
is
that we're here to rescue you.
I want to fail, but I want to fail forward. I want to learn. I want to be able to develop my skills. I want to be able to develop spots where I didn't even recognize I had a weakness, and I think that being a part of this organization really sets myself up for and exposes me to a lot of different things that I never really knew about myself.
Yeah, no, for what it's worth, by the way, I think our treasurer doesn't even want to be the treasurer. That's a very thankless job.
That's very true.
Nobody wants to deal with the IRS.
Yeah, but we all do get to contribute things that aren't necessarily our job. For example, Daniela works day in, day out in human resources and has for a decade and a half, but somehow ended up with a different job for JCI Santa Clarita. Like, what are you doing now?
Now, at least right now, director of social media marketing, which I've never done. And I'll be honest, for the last couple of years, I wouldn't even say I was very active on social media, just like random photos, family stuff. But yeah, thankfully through here, I could dabble. We've done podcasts together, so that's a first too.
Yeah, it was. By the way, it was the first for me. I'm the one recording it here in my studio, but this is my 4th podcast ever, and it's our 4th for JCI Santa Clarita. So it's like, it's a learning process for me. And I listened to our first couple, and I still cringe because I'm like, there's better ways to do that stuff. But yeah, it is getting
I'm glad
better,
you got
so.
it together for whenever you had Christian and I on. It really means a lot.
Yeah.
But I mean, even the videos that we've done over time, like you see the progression, and so you really develop along the way.
Yeah, for sure. Christians, you're relatively new also. Did you start at the same time as Joe?
No, I was a little bit later. I want to say that I joined on the tail end later in July.
Okay.
Just in a nutshell, I'll be brief, but the way I got started was, I think I added Neil on Facebook or something like that.
What did you do that for?
Just looking back on it, may have made a different decision, but hindsight's 20/20. But no, I added him. I saw we had a lot of mutual friends. I'm always looking to expand my network, and he reached out to me on one of my posts about July 4th. Whatever, it was funny. We kind of seemed to get along. He seemed like a quirky individual, and so we decided to meet up and grab a beer at Black and Blue, which is a new restaurant in town.
Mm-hmm.
And we just learned about each other. He told me about the JCs. I was familiar with it. I had seen 40 Under 40 on social media in the past and people in JCI, and I said, I knew they're really involved in the community. I've been wanting to step up my presence because for me, I've lived in Santa Clarita since 1997. I mean, this is my home. I mean, and I was 3 years old back then. So as far as I'm concerned, this is where I've lived all my life.
Right, yeah, you weren't making memories before that.
Exactly. So unless you want to be technical, yeah, this is my home. And so now that I'm back from school, I went to Arizona State. I really wanted to get plugged in, and I saw this as a great avenue to do that. And for me, I mean, I have massive ADHD, so it's nice for me to be able to help out a lot of different efforts and nonprofits without necessarily fully committing to one, I guess. And I saw, again, the JCs as an avenue for doing that, but also to, network and meet some great people, whether it's, not just in the business community, but in like the corporate world and the nonprofit world. And you just really I think your network is your net worth. Your what is it? The law of association says you are the top 5 people you hang around with the most, and your income level tends to be like that. Whether or not that's exactly true, the idea stands. The people that you hang out with, that's what your life is going to.
I hang out around a lot with you, Christian. So what does that say about myself?
Yeah, that's not a good look for you.
Ouch. I didn't say that. Koren said it.
But that's why I'm here at the JCs. I'm here to get better, and so that's like
you're here to meet people like me and be around me. I get it.
Exactly.
Get it.
So I'm more of the leech, and I'm improving myself at the expense of Joe. Just to quickly wrap up. But for me, and I love philosophy, so on a philosophical level, I think that communities are built from the individual up. I believe in a bottom-up approach, and so I think that it's important for people to get involved in their communities and to give back and just to serve. I think that, again, like we talked about earlier with random acts of kindness, it forms a ripple effect. And yeah, if I believe that, I really don't want to be a hypocrite. I want to practice what I preach, and I saw this as a great avenue to do that. So here I am.
Yeah, that's really cool. Now, for what it's worth, we're recording this in November of 2019, and you guys join in May and July respectively. So you're both in for about 4 to 6 months. And what's crazy about that is I think that I was out of the country, Joe, when you first came to that chat and chill, right? And so I didn't get a chance to meet you then. But when I came to the next one, I don't remember if that was in June or July, you guys were around and you were already involved in something. And I was like, who the heck are these guys? But like you guys acted like you were in for years. So I just I guess they've been here and I didn't know. But
Neil gave us some pretty strong Kool-Aid. We drank the Kool-Aid pretty early.
Yeah, well, we're happy to have you.
He gave us the hot potato.
Cool. Well, that's a huge thing that you just jumped in. I know that now that I think about it, Daniela did the same thing last year. You received an award at the Awards and Installation that I got the year before that for the JC that jumped in and like full force.
Yep.
And it's a memory of a JC who had passed away years ago, but I guess he was known for as soon as he came in, just anytime he was asked to help or participate in something, he just jumped right in wholeheartedly and did it. And that's kind of what we've all been doing. So between the two of you, that's going to be a hell of a competition.
Yeah.
for that award.
It's okay. I'm not that competitive. Just kidding.
I'm extremely competitive.
Boy, all right. Well, I can help you guys out with a smear campaign,
I was
and
gonna say,
Daniela
I'm
can
waiting
run the
for
social
those
media.
emails.
No, I look forward to collaborating with you, Joe. That's like my politician answer.
Yeah,
I love the politician answer, but I'm gonna crush you.
you guys are awesome. Well, I'm looking forward to seeing more from all of you guys for next year and beyond. I think that we've got an exciting slate of activities and events for 2020. So stay tuned for more information on future episodes of the JCI Santa Clarita podcast. Joe, Christian, thank you so much for joining. And Daniela, thanks for being the co-host today.
Thanks
Thank
for
you, Koren.
Absolutely. Thanks for having us.